I got a $25 million verdict. Could Nancy Grace possibly find herself in a similar situation?
Yeah, if it's ever determined that the mother had nothing to do with the child's disappearance. If the family came to me, Joe, I would not hesitate to do something with Nancy Grace. But you have to remember, Nancy Grace is an entertainer. She thinks she's a prosecutor now. She thinks she's a policewoman, but she's an entertainer. And she's singularly responsible for CNN headline news picking up substantial ratings. So they're not likely to do anything. Perhaps shame would affect her, but I don't think the Robert Welch statement to McCarthy means anything to her. And frankly, I'm not even sure she knows the history of have you no shame, which is an appropriate admonition to her.
Yeah, you say she's an entertainer, and yet a woman may be dead tonight because of an interview. And also on top of that, she's putting her parents, the woman's parents and family, through a living, breathing hell every single night.
Well, that's right, because we have an entertainer who actually thinks that she's a prosecutor and thinks she's a policewoman and thinks that she has the license to do things that she doesn't have the license to do. In other words, she has no shame. There are no boundaries anymore, and the only thing that would really teach her, or in this case CNN, a lesson, is to make them pay a whole great deal of money. But again, that won't happen unless and until it's established that the mother had nothing to do with it. Because, God forbid, but if the mother did have something to do with the child's disappearance, then Nancy Grace will be on a soapbox the size of Mount Everest.
That's not the issue, Joe. And I know we have another guest together. This is not about entertainment. If, in fact, Nancy Grace, Jeffrey, is an entertainer, CNN should not be called the cable news network. We should say we're a news network, and she's an entertainer. Oh, come on, you can't get away with that. You can't.
All right, and let me bring in Andrea right now. Andrea, you know what? My problem is this. Maybe Nancy Grace is right. Maybe this mother did something to her child, but she doesn't know that any more than you know that or I know that.
Well, I have to say,
why does she keep going after this dead woman every night?
I have to say, I'm sitting here and I'm fuming on the inside because I think this story is another case of how the media is so ignorant when it comes to mental illness. Nancy Grace didn't cause this woman's suicide. Untreated mental illness did.
Did she help?
You know, each year, over 500,000 people kill themselves. Are you guys going to tell me that all of them were Nancy Grace?
Joe, what a joke. Listen,
no, let me ask you this. Let me ask
you, if in fact this woman had a mental problem, did the producers of Nancy Grace's program have any responsibility to deal with a 21-year-old woman who lost her baby and ask themselves, should we have a psychologist talk to her before we put her on the air? You tell me.
You tell me what TV show does that? We know that doesn't happen.
What world has Nancy Grace interrogating people on the air?
Andrea, hold on a second. Andrea, let me tell you about a TV show that would do that, or at least wouldn't do what Nancy Grace did. This TV show wouldn't. If I had a woman who had lost, and I think everybody that I work with at MSNBC and almost everybody else at CNN and Fox, if there were a woman that had just lost her child, I wouldn't beat the hell out of her on national television, and I don't think many other people would. Do you think, Andrea, that that is acceptable behavior?
I don't think Nancy did anything different than any other host does. In fact, I think that she does it better than most of you people do. And I have to say that there are many predictors of suicide. Most of them are unreliable. We know most people who kill themselves are depressed. They've engaged in self-injurious behaviors, and they feel hopeless. Nancy Grace is not a warning sign for suicide.
Did she help this woman?
You know what? Many parents of missing kids would have killed to have that opportunity to have this media coverage.
Did Nancy Grace help this woman? Did Nancy Grace help this woman?
She allowed for a forum for that mother to help find that kid. That woman is an adult.
That sure didn't sound like what she was doing here. Hey, we got to leave. I've got to tell you, though, it sure didn't sound like that's how the interview was going. We're going to bring y'all back tomorrow night. There's a lot more.